and this class is now recording. I want to welcome everybody. I want to particularly welcome Rabbi Monshine for agreeing to give us this class and to tell us all about the Jewish communities of Smolensk and Lubavitch. We're very, very grateful, Rabbi Monshine, for you to give us your time, and I'm going to be putting the spotlight on you. There we go. So now we can all see you. And what time is it there now in Smolensk?
It's 10:34 p.m. And so by me, I can say good evening. Good afternoon to you. I'll tell you in the beginning, if you have any questions or any comment, please feel free.
So usually, if I can just interject, usually we save questions for the end, just so that we don't get too many interruptions throughout the program. So we'll leave about 10 or 15 minutes at the end for people to ask questions.
Okay. And if I get stuck in a certain point, so you can give a comment and tell me to move on. So my name is Rabbi Levi Monshine. I was born in Israel actually near Kfar Chabad. Kfar Chabad is the main Chabad headquarters in Israel. And I grew up in Jerusalem, and then I studied in Jerusalem, Kfar Chabad, and then moved to Canada. I studied in Montreal. Then I was sent the Rebbe's Shlichus to Australia. I was there 2 years, 1 year in Sydney and 1 year in Melbourne. And then in Melbourne, I got my rabbinical smicha, became a rabbi. And the next year, I came in to Russia. My family history has to do with Russia. My mother was born right after they left Russia. My father was born to Russian immigrant family. He was born already in Israel. And in my childhood, I heard a lot about Russian Jewry, the history of many Hasidic Jews that gave their life either literally or gave over their life to spread Judaism throughout Russia. And as a child that heard a lot about Russia, I was very, very excited, as all Jews were excited when the gates of Russia opened up and Jews moved out of Russia. And on my first opportunity, I went to Russia. That was in 1993. I went to be a counselor in a Jewish camp in Ukraine. It's in the city called Kherson. It's actually the same city where my grandfather was born. Happened to be, and I went to that place. And then I came back, as I said before, after I got my rabbinical smicha certificate. I went to Russia in the end of 1997. Since then, I can say I got stuck in Russia. 2 years afterwards, I got married and moved there with my wife from the States. I got married in the States, in Pittsburgh, and we moved to Moscow. Over there, I worked in the center of Chabad in Russia and all Soviet Union, former Soviet Union in Moscow. I worked in the chief rabbinate, and I was looking at all the time, where can I give more for myself to a place who needs me more, rather than staying in a big city like Moscow, where today there are many rabbis. Then there wasn't so many, but there were people who did the work that had to be done. And then I got the offer to move to Smolensk. Smolensk is about 400 kilometers from Moscow. It's actually in the middle of the way between Moscow and Kiev. And we'll get back to it soon. That was 18 years ago, end of 1992, 2002. And when I was on my way from Moscow to Smolensk, I realized that I'm not just going to a foreign city that have nothing what to do with that. I realized that in that region, I have roots from my family, because I passed the city where my great grandfather was born. And I think also Rabbi Liberov has to do with that city. That's the city used to be called Gzhatsk. Today it's called Gagarin. And I realized that I'm coming back to my family roots. Okay, that's my my first connection to Smolensk. And I'll tell you a few things about Smolensk itself. Smolensk is a very, very old city. The first records of that city was found is already 1,158 years ago. It means that the city is a very old city, much older than the capital of Russia today, Moscow. The city is called an heroic city because of the many wars that were in that city. The city used to have a very big wall around the old city. Used to be 18 kilometers, and today there's only a third left, and that's because of the different wars that were around that city. Say that the city had moved within 5 empires. The Mongols were here. The city belonged to Polish Lithuania, and then the Russian Tsar took over. And then in 1812, was the famous Napoleon War. Also, they came here, and they had a big, it was a big war around this city. And actually, this has to do also with today, because if the ones who know a little bit about the Russian Hasidic history, Napoleon's war has to do with first Lubavitcher Rebbe, the Alter Rebbe of Chabad, because he used to live in the city of Liadi, and when Napoleon came closer, he ran away from Liadi because he was against Napoleon. That has to do with a total different topic we're not going to touch now. And he ran away from Napoleon towards Moscow. He passed by Smolensk, and he stayed overnight outside of the city of Smolensk. It was a Friday night until Saturday day, when they heard that Napoleon is getting closer and was already dangerous. Then even though it was Saturday day, Shabbos, the Rebbe said that they have to move on because of the danger. Why am I mentioning it? Because years later, when we already built our shul, we found out that we built our shul, you can say, almost in the same place where the Rebbe stayed overnight was very emotional moment for us because we felt that we came back and we actually got the place where the Rebbe was. It's as the saying of the sages that Torah is looking back to the roots where she was. Means we, the followers of the Rebbe, 200 years later, came back to the same place where he was. So this, as I said before, here Napoleon was here in the place, conquered for a short while the city, and then came back to Russia until the Second World War. Was also, there was a big fight around Smolensk, and the old Jews of here were telling the stories. They remember one big street, the main street over here. They remember that half of the street was by the Russians and half of the street was by the Germans, and unfortunately it was a lot of blood spilled on that road. But there was a big fight around Smolensk, and the Russians won, and that's why, as I said before, the city is called an heroic city. That's in short about the history of Smolensk with the different empires that conquered over here. Before the war, I'm talking before 1940, 1941, there was a period of time that where many Jews lived in this city. It was tens of thousands lived over here. And that was until the war. Years earlier, Jews weren't allowed to live in the city. Only people like businessmen got the permission to live over here. All the rest of the Jews were allowed to live only in the Städtlach, in the small towns and villages. Here in Smolensk was not a place for Jews that time, but still there were many Jews who got the permission, and that's why there was some small community over here. Later on, when Jews were allowed to live over here, so we found in the records that was a Jewish school and different Jewish institutions, and there were many minyanim, means there were different shuls around over here. It was a big main shul, and then was a lot of few small shuls, and then besides that were like this, except these synagogues were also small places, houses that had a minyan. After, when the war started, some the Jews that were able ran away. There was many Jews who ran to different places of around Russia. The ones who couldn't run away, they stayed over here, and then the Nazis made a ghetto right outside the city. And unfortunately, on July 15, 1942, the Jewish ghetto was, all the Jews of the Jewish ghetto were killed right outside Smolensk. And in that place, it's called Vizevenka, there's a place, there's a burial for all the Jews. There's a few thousand of Jews. Every year we come together and we say prayers and we remember the Jews that were killed. After the war, there was a lot of Jews that came back from all different places, and they reestablished some Jewish life over here. Although the synagogue, they never opened again. Sorry, I missed before. On 1917, if I'm not mistaken, they finished build the big shul. It's called the Chor Shul, and not too many years after, like about 10 years, the government took away the building and turned it to a theater. In the records that I found, it's not written that the government took away the shul. Said that the community asked to transfer the shul to become a theater, and you can understand that building was actually stayed even during the war. I saw a picture of 1943 after the Russians came back, like conquered back the city. You see that the whole street around the shul was burned, and you see the shul building is still standing. Then it wasn't a shul already; it was already the theater, but the shul, the building is stayed. It was very interesting. And after the war, when as I said before, the Jews came back. So as I heard from many elderly, that in the main square of the city, you used to hear a lot of Yiddish. He said the second language was Yiddish because many Jews lived around here, and that was the language. As I said before, they didn't open back shul. First of all, it was not allowed under communist region, but there were different places, different houses that had gathered together from minyan. That was for about 40 years. When Jews started, after the fall of communism, Jews started to gather officially. That was in the beginning of the 90s. And by the end of the 90s, they used to send over here from time to time young rabbis for Pesach and for other high holidays, but there was no rabbi that lived over here permanent. And then when I came over here at the end of 2002, we started again the shul every Shabbos. We didn't have a shul building. We rented a office in an office building. We're able to get together over there, like for some for holidays. We got together probably around 60 people, the max. But we started every Shabbos to get together, and we gathered about 20 Jews every Shabbos. And as it's very common over here, after the prayers, we sat down for a small Shabbos meal, and we used to talk a lot. Different. Then it was mostly elderly Jews. They used to say their stories, the childhood from the war, and we got to know more the people of here. Slowly, younger people started to come, and some students, and we started our work with different ages. As I said before, we were in an office building, but we knew that we need to have our own place, our own shul, and bring back the pride of the Jews that used to be over here years ago. For about 10 years, it took us till we got our own place, and thank God we built our own shul. It was long story how we got the permission and then how we built it, and thank God that we got all the finances for it. It was a long story. We're not going to get to it, but I can tell you only one thing, that wherever a Jew is doing something, trying to do something, God helps. I'll say towards the same way we see in the first temple was built in the desert. It said that Moses wanted to lift up the Mishkan, the temple, and he couldn't. God told him, put your hand and I'll lift it up. And that's what happened in every place. When we want to do something, we show God that we want to do it, then God somehow lifts it. And that's what happened over here. We tried, and thank God, successfully, we built our own place. And today we have near the center of the city, a nice size synagogue with property around it. And that's the main place for all Jewish activities today in Smolensk. What's interesting that in 2008 was a very big step for the community. We still didn't have our own synagogue, but there was a local Jewish businessman that asked me if I would donate a Torah, would that make maybe that God will help us build faster our synagogue? I told him we can only try. I can't promise you, but as I said before, if we do something, if we have a Torah, so we'll hopefully get faster a place for the Torah, a shul. Although we had a small shul, but he meant to have a big synagogue. And he actually donated a Torah. And I'm saying it was a big step for the Jewish community because that was the first big event for the community. We marched in the streets of Smolensk with the Torah, and many Jews were telling us after that they were afraid to participate in a Jewish parade. Like, what? Everybody's going to look at us, tell, "Oh, you're Jewish." And I didn't know you're Jewish. But then they said when the parade passed their street and they saw the Jewish pride, they decided to go out and march together. And I remember a story that I was told from a young Jewish couple that a daughter, I think she was 7 or 8 years old. When she came back home, she told the parents, "I feel so good that I'm Jewish. I want to do something like with that." She asked what she can do. And then she saw the Torah that she had in the bookshelf, and she took it out and she started to read. And then when the parents told me that, they said they felt so good with that the daughter has the Jewish pride, that it helped them to strengthen their Judaism also, and they became closer to Yiddishkeit. Was another interesting story connected to that. We gave the small children, if you know the small puffy Torah they give for little kids, like they can play with that and sometimes they can dance with it like that. They have a Torah. So we gave small Torah like this to the small children. And a mother comes to us like a few months later. She said that her daughter got it, and they have in school a program which is called in Russian Pachimuniki, which means why. Kids like to ask why. So what they have, they bring different subjects that they have in the house, and they bring it to class, and they're telling about it, like, what is that? Why do we have it? What does it mean to us? And this daughter, she was, I think, 5 or 6. She brought to school, a local day school, public school. She brought this small toy on Torah. She brings it to a public school. She asks, who knows what is that? And why is that? For sure, no one knew what is that. But she made a research before she came to school. And with the help of her parents, she looked on the internet, and she was giving like a whole lecture to the kids, what's Torah and what does it mean to the Jewish nation, the Torah. There was 2 small incidents of stories that came as a result from this march with the Torah, dancing with the Torah in the streets. At year 2012, we conclude, thank God, the building of the synagogue, which the building itself has about 800 meters, and then there's small properties in the what's it called, campus, whatever. We have a mikveh over there for men and women, different mikvahs, and a big playground for kids. And hopefully, with God's help, we're also planning to build over there kindergarten. When we opened the building, the Judaism of here in the city went up to few levels higher. First of all, Jews felt that they have their own building. Many Jews came in just to see what's a synagogue. By the opening, we had probably around 500 Jews came together. We were outside of the show. It was a big concert, and it was a big Jewish pride in the city. And since then, as I said before, this became the center for Judaism in our city. And we have over there programs for kids, for young adults, students, and classes for men and women in different days. This is a place also we get together for different holidays, for Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year, for Hanukkah, for Purim, and from time to time there's concerts, Jewish concerts in this place. And we also give out over there humanitarian aid for the needy or different families, and just come from time to time, and just even someone comes to talk, to say whatever they have on their mind, tell. Sometimes you have to hear stories from people. Sometimes people come with different questions. Sometimes need help someone with medical assistance, like help. That's the main place for Jews to come. In this is, I can move on about Lubavitch. Rabbi?
Yes, sure. Tell me whenever you want me to start sharing the photos.
Whatever you want. That's I'm not going to explain each photo so they can know if.
Fine. So then maybe I'll start that now. And as you talk, just so everyone knows, I'm going to share my screen, which will have a slideshow of photos, which are all from Smolensk, different activities.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to mention another one, a small thing. Like when we came, you can start sharing. I don't know if when we came, it was the first activity we had was Purim, and then this is the synagogue, and then people told us that many different Jewish holidays, they only heard about it, they read about it, and even sometimes when the guy gathered together, they spoke about it. And that's the first Rosh Hashanah when we blew the shofar. So I can say probably 99% of the people, they never heard shofar, and they told us, oh yeah, every Rosh Hashanah we speak about that there is such a thing, and now actually we can hear the shofar. And the same thing when it came Sukkot. We built a sukkah outside, and one of the Jewish leaders over here told me, oh, we used to put on the table like a model, a sukkah model. And here now we can come and sit in the sukkah. For Chabad, from Hasidic history, this city is very important because Lubavitch, as you know, Chabad Lubavitch is in our region. Actually, here we see a picture now of Lubavitch. This is the gravesite of the third and fourth Lubavitcher Rebbe. It's about an hour, 10 minutes drive from the city. And over there in Lubavitch was the center of Chabad movement for 102 years. Since after the Napoleon War was since 1814 in the beginning, until this is the old building of the shul, until 1916. So for 102 years was the center of Chabad Hasidim. This place is a small village, and when the Rebbe lived over there, our Rebbeim, for the high holidays, used to be packed with tens of thousands of Hasidim that came all together to this small place. It was very interesting why they chose this place, although it was a very small village, like off the road, as you say, but because it was that it was like away from the big cities, the Rebbe decided to be over there because that's a small place where you can live your life and get together Hasidim to wherever they need. But this is those days it used to belong to Belarus. Later on became Russia, because it's right on the border from Russia and Belarus. But a few times a year, this small village was very busy because the market came. It used to call the Yerid those days. It used to be in that village. In 1897, in Lubavitch was established the first yeshiva of Chabad in that place, and for many years till the First World War, and 2 years after, this was a place who hundreds of boys learned over there, and from these boys that learned in Lubavitch, many of them went around Russia because the Rebbe sent them for different cities. And thank God, because of these students that went to different cities in Russia, Judaism kept, although in a small flame, but kept on in Russia. After the communism fell, met a few old Jewish people that said that they had to do with this and this guy that used to learn in Lubavitch many years before, and he kept the Yiddishkeit in their town, in their city, in their neighborhood. For many years, it was hard to go visit the place. From when communism came up until the war, until 1942, there was still a Jewish community in that place. But unfortunately, by the war, the Jews from Lubavitch were also killed and buried over there. There's a gravesite for all the Jews that passed away. It says over there, like 483 people. That's probably the records that they have of the Jews in Lubavitch that were killed. Later on, I heard from people who traveled to this place. Why did I have to travel to Lubavitch? Because as I said before, in Lubavitch is the gravesite called the Ohel of the third and the fourth Lubavitch Rebbe. And the place was kept, although the building around was destroyed, but the tombs were still in the place. So secretly, Jews used to travel to the place, and as they used to tell over afterwards that this kept them like with Jewish energy to continue, because they felt that they have a place they can come and pray and ask God for help for their life. About 20 years ago, when people started to travel again, like openly and more constantly to Lubavitch, the place started to become nicer. They started to renovate the place where used to be the yeshiva years ago. And actually, nowadays, they rebuilding in the same place, building approximately the size that used to be then. And the reason is that many people come today. There's thousands of tourists come every year. This year was very hard for outside Russia people to come, but within Russia, many hundreds of people still came in this year to travel to Lubavitch. That's why they renovating the place. And right next to the gravesite of the Rabbeim, years ago used to be a small synagogue, and about 2 years ago they found the foundations of the synagogue, and they built in the same place, they built the new shul in the same place where used to be the shul years ago in the cemetery. For our community, being close to that place is very important, and they feel that they can go pray in a holy site, and they definitely see the blessings from God after they go pray in that place. And they know that many people come from all around the world, and they live close, and that's why they try to go from time to time to pray in that place. Basically, that's in short, what I have to say. If you want to have questions or you want to show something about Lubavitch with the way it looks today, or
maybe we can take some questions from the audience. If you're on the computer, you can just go ahead and unmute yourself as usual. If you're on the phone, you can unmute yourself by pressing star and then 6. And then you can just jump in and ask a question. Maybe I can get started, Rabbi Monshine. Do you find any anti-Semitism in your part of the world?
It's a very good question. I'll tell you, in the beginning, I was very afraid of that. And for sure, many people were afraid for me. I remember that probably it was my first year over here. We had a meeting of different leaders, of community leaders over here. And I came as I walk, like usually with my hat and jacket. And one of the older people tells me, like, I hope you don't walk like that in the street. I told him, I actually do. Why? This is so dangerous. I told him, I don't know. I don't feel dangerous with that. And I did. I used to walk every Shabbos around 35 minutes from my house to shul. And I never heard anything in the street. It was a very, very funny moment. I remember once I was stopped in the street by an older Russian lady. and she started to cross herself and started to talk to me. She thought I'm a priest. So I told him, like, I can work with this. Some people don't even know that I'm Jewish. And I told them, we can learn from that we don't have to be afraid from our shadow. Like, we're doing whatever we have to do, and God definitely protects us. But in answer to your question, I really don't see it. Thank God. Years ago, it was very dangerous, but I can say in the last 25 years of here, it's got very, very low rates of anti-Semitism.
That's very good to know. It's good to hear. Very encouraging.
Yeah.
Okay. Does anyone have a question? Any questions? Where is the nearest Frum community to where you are?
That's what do you call Rome?
Meaning a place where there's shchita, where you can.
Okay, so that's Moscow. That's, as I said, it's like a 4.5, 5 hours drive. Closer community to me, it is like a 3-hour drive. It's called Bryansk. Over there, they have a Jewish day school and nice community, larger than us. And it's actually very good because from time to time we get together. Even our students, like our youth programs, get together sometimes for Shabbaton. We do together. It's very helpful for both of our communities because they see that it's not.
Is that where your children go to school, or do they do homeschooling?
My children do. They learn online.
Online.
And the little ones.
Do you feel any threat of war?
Any threats of war?
With Russia?
You mean Russia, Ukraine? Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
No, we're actually very far from the border. I don't feel anything over here. And only maybe around close to the place where the border, they feel something, but no, not over here. It's very, very calm.
How about intermarriage there and what it was when you came and what the future looks like in Meretz Hashem?
It's a very, 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 they say, hard. I don't know. That's we were very in Russia, in our city, Bichlal. It's a very hard topic because you have 90% probably intermarriage. Within our community, I can say, thank God, we've got a good few people that, youth that got married to Jews. And some of them even moved away. I mean, whoever got married, moved away and move on either to Moscow or even to Israel. I have a few couples who live in Israel, and they live good Jewish religious life. But our main goal over here is not to get people be religion, just they should marry two Jews. And we put a lot of efforts by the students, tell them, explain about it, but sometimes it's very, very hard to see someone who came from a long chain of Jewish family that marries out. It's very painful. I hope it's going to come to us, because in Moscow, thank God, is today, in some other cities that have bigger communities, the amount of youth that marry Jews became much higher. So we hope it's going to come to the small cities too, but we need to help them.
How old are your children?
My oldest is 21.
21. I assume she,
He.
you thought he. He's
Yeah.
still a booker. He's not married. Right. When he marries,
Yeah.
he meets Hashem, if you marry the right person and all that. Will he leave your community and never really come back?
Um, I'm sure that, I mean, he's already, I can say, good few years he's not here since he moved to yeshiva. So, so he comes here only, once a year, maybe sometimes twice a year. He was just here for Pesach, and but he's open to go wherever he wants. He feels close to our community, but I don't know if he's gonna stay here.
I
It's
assume,
open.
I assume you will have some influence on that decision.
Again,
I assume you as a tata will have some influence on that decision.
I give my kids free choices in this thing.
I know what that means. Free choices. Yeah. Thank you very much. Appreciate your delivery, your presentation. It opened up an area that I wasn't familiar with. And you should be well, and you should have a future there that grows and grows and grows,
Are there Jewish people moving into the area?
Moving into the area, not really. A lot of the youth even go to the bigger cities. We look to go to Moscow and such bigger places. Only thing I can add to answer that question, my kids think I feel very close to the community. They feel that this is their place. I remember after we were for a while in the States for a visit, my kids asked, when are we going back home? So I felt that it's good when children feel safe and secure in their own town. It's good.
Are there any other questions? It seems like there's no other questions.
What happens? What happens with your university students? They're local, or they're coming in from another city, and then do they stay, and what happens to the Yiddishkeit after they leave university?
The students mostly are local, but actually I did have students from other places, and actually very interesting one. There were students from South Russia with a student from like the Russian border with Germany even, that studied over here, and they met each other in our shul, and thank God later they got married. I think the picture was here before also Ron. So it was very interesting. Two souls got to meet each other in the shul, although they even learned in the same university, but they didn't see each other there. They met in our shul. It was very nice.
Beautiful.
Beautiful, Yeshkoyach.
Okay, well, Rabbi Mumshine, I want to thank you so much for giving us of your time. I know it's late over there, and I think everybody learned a great deal, and I really appreciate it. I want to wish you a lot of bracha and atzlacha, have a lot of success and blessing in all of your holy work, and look forward to meeting again one day.
Thank you for the opportunity, and let's hope we'll meet together in Jerusalem speedily nowadays.
Amen. Amen. Okay.
Amen is right.
Well, and
Be well.
Yontif.
All right.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone.
Thank you.
Beautiful.